Hi everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about confidentiality with minors. Is a topic that I selected because is something that I've been around for the last 10 to 12 years here working it for the Department of Education. I've been working with the special ed department for that time, and I've always been around counselors, always been around kids with different issues, different situations that they're going through in their lives. And I've sat through some of the sessions, actually many of them, and this is one of the things that the counselors always have informed the students is about the confidentiality, that they will not share anything that happens within the confines of the counseling session. Something that is very, very important for counselors to share with the students. The reason for that is because students feel that they don't have anybody that they can speak to without it getting back to their parents or other people knowing about the situations that are going on with them. So them having a counselor that they can speak to and their information will not leave the confines of the session is something that is very comforting for them. Um, if I was a student, I would feel the same exact way. If I couldn't communicate with anybody, if I felt that um, whatever I said or whatever I stated would get back to my parents, get back to my friends, or whoever else is out there, I will actually feel the same way as they do. Like I didn't want to really speak to anybody. So them having that person that they believe in their minds will not share any of the information is very, very important to them. And that's one of the reasons why I chose to deal with the topic of confidentiality with minors. I really think is something that is very, very important to students and anybody that has to go and speak to a counselor for whatever reason. Would it be a psychiatrist, a therapist, anybody that you feel can help you, but you don't want anybody else to know? It is very, very important that whatever is spoken about in those sessions does not get out to anybody else. So that's the reason why I chose this topic, and I'm very happy to share some of the information I have with you guys today. Well, first off, we're going to be talking about confidentiality. Um, First, client confidentiality is the requirement that therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, and most other mental health professionals protect their clients' privacy by not revealing the contents of their therapy. Basically, what that means is that when you go into a session with a therapist, psychiatrist, psychologist, or anybody in the mental health um, field, and you have a session, it could be a individual session, it could be a group session. Basically, what that means is that anybody who is in that session, what they speak of, uh, it is not going to be told to anybody, revealed to anybody. That is not in there. Whatever is said in that session has to remain within the confines of the four walls that are there. Um, that is basically what confidentiality means. This brings, in a way, it brings like a sense of comfort to the anybody who's dealing with who's within the session. It helps them open up. It takes away. It helps take away some of the fears of having a session with somebody who you really don't know like that. When sometimes when you speak to one of these mental health professionals, you really don't know who they are. You know what they do, but you don't know them personally. And having the privacy, the confidentiality within that session that you're going to have, or that anybody's going to have, makes it a little more comfortable for them to be able to share their thoughts, share their issues, share anything that is going on with their personal lives that they wouldn't normally share with anybody else. When it comes to minors, that is something that is very, very important to them because they're very private with things. Most of them are. If it's something that can embarrass them, something that can make them look strange to the rest of the rest of the school population, having that privacy helps them share it with helps them share it with somebody. Sometimes minors, they just need an outlet, and having a person like that, a counselor, that is by law will not share any of the things that are shared within the session, is something that is very, very important to any minor, and anybody, with anybody in life. It's just something that you may need an outlet. And on top of being an outlet for minors, counselors help them. They help them deal with whatever's going on in their lives. So that's why confidentiality is something that is very, very important to minors. For licensed mental health professionals, confidentiality is protected by state laws. This is very, very important to um, counselors, or mental health professionals rather. It's very important because they know that within the laws of the United States, they are pretty much covered when it comes to the privacy that their clients have. It is very important to them because it's something that they explain to the client, they explain to the student, they explain to anybody that whatever happens there is protected by law. Um, the Minors Confidentiality was first enacted in 1974 and amended in 1994 under the Improving America Schools Act. Minors confidentiality is also protected under the Family Educational Rights and Private Act, which is known as FERPA. Well, a funny thing is that within that within that act is that minors don't really have all the privacy or confidentiality that they believe they have until the age of 18. Before minors turn 18 years of age, the parents are the ones that actually hold the majority of those rights. As far as like anything within the sessions, if you're not 18 years of age, then your parent can actually access all of the information that's going on in there because you are considered a minor. But I don't think counselors actually reveal all of that to the minors, which is one thing that I find a little strange. Because it's like they believe that whatever happens in there stays in there. And in all reality, until you're 18 years of age, whatever is told in there, if it's something that is dangerous, something that can harm you or harm anybody else, or just anything in general that parents may want to know, they can know because in reality, they hold the rights to the minor. Now, once they're 18 years of age, they can go and then deny anything. If a parent wants to come in and wants to know what's happening within the session, then that the minor can actually say, no, you're not allowed to know anything that's happening within the session because now they're at 18 years of age. It's like they're not considered a minor anymore. Something very interesting is that a minor who is 15 years of age or older, whether with or without the consent of a parent or legal guardian, may consent to receive mental health services. Uh, that right there, I find to be very interesting because even if you're 15 years of age, you can right there, if you would like to have mental health services, you can agree to have them, or if you want to, you choose not to have them. You don't have to. Like you don't really need the permission from a parent at that age to be able to have mental health services. Now, if you take it back to what I spoke about a few seconds ago, that because you are considered a minor, whatever happens within the session can be known by a parent if you're under 18 years of age. That's, to me, is a little interesting that you at the age of between 15 and let's say 17 years of age, you have to share all the information with a parent, but at the same time, even if you are of that age, you don't need the permission of a parent to say, yes, I do agree to have mental health services and stuff like that. That's pretty interesting when you start to think about it, that you don't need permission to have mental health services, but at the same time, you're not trusted enough to have the information that's in there stay within those confines. A parent can know whenever they want. So you don't need permission to have mental health services, but at the same time, parent can actually come in and get all the information they want, whether you want the information or not. I don't know if agreeing to have mental health services at that young age is necessarily a good thing without the parent having a good understanding of what exactly is happening with the kid at that particular time. Here we have some pros and cons from confidentiality with minors. I'll first start with a couple of the pros of it. One of the pros is minors have a person they trust that they can speak to. That is a huge pro because a lot of minors don't have a person that they can speak to at any given time that who can help them, who has their best interests at heart. At times, minors have people who they speak to who really don't have an idea of how to handle certain situations, or maybe they tell them how to handle a situation, but it's not the best way to handle it. They're probably, those people are probably thinking, well, how can I help this person the right way? Well, maybe I don't know, but I'll tell them what I can. And they sometimes minors take stuff like that and they run with it, which is it could be a very harmful thing to them. So having a counselor who they can speak to about anything that's happening in their personal lives is very important because they can be guided in the right direction. Make sure they take the right choices, the right path in any situation. Another pro of confidentiality is that minors have help with difficult issues. I alluded to this a little when I was talking about somebody that they can trust, minors can trust and to speak to. It is a good thing to have somebody that they can go to when they have a difficult issue that will, in fact, have their best interest at heart, who can guide them into the most accurate, most positive path that they can. Many people, when anybody in general can come to them asking them for advice, asking them on how to handle any situation, anybody would just give them some random advice, stuff that just won't work, or something that they actually use that may not work for that particular person asking for the advice. And this is something that minors have that is at an advantage. That if you can go to a counselor at any given point in time and ask for help with a situation. And I've sat through some of these, and counselors actually sit down and they talk to the student best that they can. They give them options that they can choose to deal with whatever situation they're going through. It's not just one simple thing that is given to them, but many options, and they help them select the best option possible to deal with whatever difficult issue that they are dealing with in their lives. And that is something that is to the advantage of the minor, of the student, to have a person in their corner who can help them handle any situation that they are going through. Another pro to it is duty to warn, but this is more a pro to as far as parents, as far as people on the outside that may not know what's going on with the minor, with the student, with the person that's in the counseling sessions. The reason why it's more of an advantage to them, and it's also an advantage to the student, but more why it's an advantage to them is because duty to warn, it's something that counselors use and they explain fully to the client or the minor or the student in this situation. They tell them that confidentiality may be broken in the case of if they're going to hurt themselves or if they are in the path of hurting somebody else. Then right then and there, confidentiality is broken. And this is something that is to the advantage of let's say the school system, is in the advantage of the school, is in the advantage of the students outside, is in the advantage of any person who is dealing with someone who is going through counseling sessions. It's the advantage of them because if by any chance the minor or the client decides that they are going to in any way, shape, or form hurt somebody else who's on the outside, of somebody who they're aiming to hurt because of whatever they may or may not be doing to them personally, right then and there the counselor has to break confidentiality, and they have to tell the proper people about what's going on with the minor. Now, how does that actually help the minor or the client is because they can stop them from doing harm to themselves as well. Just actually, if you hurt somebody, you have consequences that you have to deal with. Let's say you kill a person, or you're willing to kill yourself. Those that right there, the duty to warn is something that can protect the people and protect the client at the same time. So everybody is protected by the duty to warn, and that is something that is a pro. Is a pro. It's something that's positive in the confidentiality realm. I also stated how federal and state laws protect confidentiality of the people and minors. We went through it in the slide before. So it's something that's just protected by the land, and it's something that is used by counselors just to reiterate, reinforce that confidentiality. Nothing will leave the four walls of wherever they are at having that session. Some of the cons. I have duty to warn as a con, and I also have it as a pro. The reason why I have duty to warn as a con is because it's something that has to be explained to anybody who is going into one of the sessions of counseling. The reason why I have it as a con as well is because they kind of tell you that privacy and confidentiality isn't completely what is made out to be. The reason why I say that is because there is ways to breach it, and this is one of the ways to breach it. If you can harm yourself or harm somebody else, then of course it's a breach. I call it a con, but not a con for everybody, but mostly a con probably for the person there who may feel like privacy is not completely everything that it says it is. Just in case that they have this little idea in their heads that nothing gets out of the confines of the session, there's that small window. So that may or may not take a client back a little bit because of the way that they have to kind of breach the confidentiality because of it. Is it a real like a big con? No, but it's a small con that may stop some minors, some students or clients from fully going into the whole counseling session. Another con, again, for this is for students and minors, is that parents have mostly the actual rights to confidentiality as long as the client is considered a minor. The reason why is because once, like, if this is explained to minors, they will not fully go into a counseling session, which is why I say that if a minor knows this, they knows that the whatever is spoken about within the session can be accessed by a parent, and that right there is a con for the child, because they once you explain that is everything stays here, but they're not really explaining to you that if a parent needs to know whatever's going on in there because you're not 18 years old, they can just access whatever information is being given at that particular session. The next one is limited confidentiality, which again goes back to parents having the actual rights, and there are several small areas that the information can be accessed by somebody actually more than a parent. Also, disclosure of law enforcement records, disclosure under directory information, publication of name, address, phone number after notification of intent, disclosure under health or safety emergencies, and under disclosure under the juvenile system. All this information can be accessed depending on what is actually needed by the government. Also, No Child Left Behind Act of 2002 requires a student list be given to the military for recruitment purposes. So anybody who is being under counseling sessions, some of their information can be given out to the government depending on what is needed for. If it's in a situation where they're trying to enlist people into the army, your records will be given so they know exactly what is actually going on with you. So some of the stuff is actually not as clear cut as it may sound. Here we're going to continue with some of the exceptions to confidentiality. Licensed mental health professionals can also break confidentiality in some circumstances. The most common include when a client is a threat to himself, herself, or others, which is called duty to warn. We already went through the whole process of duty to warn. Some examples of exceptions to confidentiality are: you are seeking psychological services to enable someone to commit a crime or to avoid detection or apprehension yourself. Again, harming anybody, harming yourself. This is once again how you can breach the confidentiality. You're being evaluated by a court appointed psychologist. Again, if the court appoints a psychologist, they can actually go into your records so they can have a better understanding of, so the court can have a better understanding of what it's actually dealing with. This is another way that confidentiality can be breached. You are being evaluated to determine your sanity in a criminal proceeding. This way of breaching may be something that may be beneficial to the client, depending on the evaluation that is being done in the criminal proceeding. Maybe some of the information that your mental health professional has can help the person to see if they can, clear their name in a criminal proceeding. Some of that information can be, or they can get the help that they need, depending if they actually did commit a crime. And because of the way they are, the way they're going into the because of the reasons that they're going into the counseling session, this may be able to help them clear their name by getting all of the information from their own personal mental health professional. If you are involved in a proceeding where your mental competence is at issue, this yet again, it can be breached, but this may be beneficial to the client in this court proceedings. Depending if the court wants to know if your mental state is okay, if when whatever you did, were you at the right mental place, did something trigger you? If something triggered you, if something made you do whatever it is that they say you did, they want to know all the information from your mental health professional in order to be able to help you the way that they are supposed to, or be able to have a case against or for you. You are under 16 years old and are a victim of a crime, or you are under 18 years old and your treating therapist reasonably suspects that you are a victim of child abuse. Again, it comes back to either you being hurt or you hurting somebody else. These are just different ways that confidentiality can be breached. Again, it goes back to being hurt, hurting yourself, or hurting somebody else. That will always be one of the things that will be able to, the confidentiality will be breached. Here we are going to continue with exceptions to confidentiality, and also what can't be shared. Some of the things that can be shared range from one of them is sexual activity. Many teens are sexually active but may not feel comfortable letting their parents know this fact. Teens that are engaging in sexual activity may be at risk for sexually transmitted diseases or other health risk. Like when teens can honestly just speak openly to a doctor or a mental health professional about a subject like this, they can actually receive STD testing or medical advice, or they can discuss birth control options with their mental health professional, whoever is helping them, which is something that some teens do not want to speak about with their parents, and it's actually something that is covered by the Confidentiality Act. It's something that doesn't have to be shared. It doesn't have to be shared with the parents, which is something that teens find it comforting, that whenever they are dealing with a subject such as sexual activity, that parents don't want to deal with it. Parents, whenever they think that their child is engaging in any sexual activity, all of a sudden it becomes a big issue for them. So it is something that cannot be shared outside of the counseling session, which is a good thing, because at least they are getting help from somebody who is looking out for them. Remember that doctors are not in position to pass moral judgment, which is an amazing thing. If you are If you are a mental health professional or in that field, you don't pass judgment on anybody that comes to you. You have to always stay with an open mind. Never bring your own personal agenda into the situation, which is a great thing because you're dealing with somebody with an open mind who can help you, give you an honest answer as best as they can. And that is a great thing. To ensure that a child has the best preventive care possible, um, your health professional will help the child out. They will speak to them, talk to them, and it'll be uh, uh, an open door. It'll be like sort of an open door policy with your mental health professional. Child can come in and speak about anything that they're going through as far as like sexual activity, anything like that, and they will be helped fully. Another one is drug and alcohol use. In all reality, no parent wants to hear that their child is drinking alcohol or using drugs, and few teens will be willing to even admit to it. However, sometimes we have some mental health professionals that are aware that of what is going on as far as like drug abuse, drug use, and alcohol use as far as like teens go. And they are very willing and able to help the minors deal with these situations, get the right help, get the right advice as far as being able to handle drug use and alcohol use. This is something that parents really don't want to know these things, and even when you bring it up to most parents, some will go in denial, some will just get angry, some will even question themselves as far as what they did wrong. And all of a sudden, it's not about the child. All of a sudden, it all of a sudden becomes about what did the parent do wrong? What could he have changed? How can this have happened to him? When in reality, it's not happening to him. It's happening to the child. And this is why a mental health professional comes in and helps out, helps the child, which is what should be the focus, not necessarily what could have been, what could have been done by the parent. And this is one of the reasons that drug and alcohol use, being able to be helped by a mental health professional is one thing that a child actually needs. Another area that cannot be shared is when it comes to certain mental health issues. Teens who are suffering from depression or anxiety issues may not feel comfortable discussing this with or around their parents. In fact, nearly 45% of adolescents state that they would not seek care for issues related to depression if they were required to notify their parents. 45% is a staggering rate that would not share this information with their parents. Suffering through a mental health issues such as depression, such as anxiety, and not feeling comfortable enough to speak to your parent is something that has to be very alarming for a number of teens who may be going through this situation, which again brings back to having these sessions with a mental health professional who will not be there to pass judgment, who actually understands the effects of depression, the effects of anxiety, what can go wrong, how to handle it, what techniques to use. And this is very important because suffering through an illness like this can actually cause a lot of harm to yourself and to others. So not being able to speak to a parent because of the maybe perhaps passing judgment, perhaps blaming themselves for whatever it is going on with the child is something that is very dangerous. But having a mental health professional who can help the child, guide them through how to deal with anxiety, how to deal with depression is something that is very positive. It is something that in itself is a great thing for any teen that's going through it. Now we're going to move into what can actually be shared. HIV and AIDS. In most cases, testing for the presence of HIV antibodies is done confidentially. However, if test results are positive for this disease, the decision to notify parents can be a tricky one. Some states require the physicians to notify parents only if the teen is under the age of 16. Others may require disclosure for any minor. Still, others mandate that the doctor maintain the teen's confidentiality. In all cases, your pediatrician is likely to encourage your child to speak with you about this matter. Again, this is highly important. This is something that has to be shared because, again, it puts the client at risk, and it also puts other people at risk. This is something that obviously you can see it depends on the state, and it depends on the age, but ultimately it's something that has to be shared, again, because it can be harmful to others and harmful to the same person. Something that else is contraception. In 1977, the United States Supreme Court decreed that teens have a right to confidentiality when it comes to contraception. However, fewer than half of the states in the U.S. uphold this right. Some states require that parents are notified about contraceptive measures administered by doctors, while others enable teens to receive this treatment or medication confidentially. You will need to speak with your child's doctor to learn the policies practiced in their particular offices. This is one of those things that I believe it can go either way. I really believe that this is something that the parent may have to know, but again, it depends on the teen. This one I'm not 100% sure what side I will actually be on, but at the same time, it's just a good thing that they can actually have somebody to speak to let them know what the positives and negatives from dealing with a situation like this have. So it's a good thing that they have somebody who can share this with. About notifying the parents, I think it's something that should be done, but it's not something that I can personally just say yes, go in that direction. It's something that has to be up for depending on who this is happening to. Abortion, again, this matter is dictated by state law. Many states require parental notification if a minor is seeking an abortion, but the Supreme Court has ordered that if such a law exists, there must be a way that this notification can be bypassed. If a teen can show the abortion is in her best interest and that notifying parents could be dangerous. The matter of abortion is a very, very difficult one. But again, it depends on the state's parental rights to notify. This is one of those things that can affect the child. If you have a minor who is at the age of 15 years old and they're gonna have a baby, this is gonna put a strain into the way they're gonna grow up, because now they are no longer a teenager who is going to school, who is having fun, who is just living life. Now is a teenager trying to raise a child. So this is another one that it depends on who the parents are. It depends on who the kid is. It just is, it's a lot of things that go on with just the subject of abortion that it makes it a very difficult situation to handle. But again, having a person there to speak to guide them is something that is very comforting, at least in my opinion. Another one that has to be shared is several mental health issues. If teens exhibit signs of several emotional and mental health problems, are at risk for suicide or can endanger those around them, treating physician has a duty to notify the parents. If the doctor suspects that these issues may stem from major problems within the home, authorities may be called on to investigate the child's living conditions. Again, harming yourself, harming others, right then and there, the breach is pretty much automatic. But the one thing that's a little different about this is when it says if the doctor suspects that the issues may stem from major problems within the home, the authorities have to be notified. In many cases, the reason why we have mental issues or health issues is because of whatever's happening at home. It could be physical abuse, it could be mental abuse. Any sort of abuse that is happening at home can be brought to their everyday lives very easily. So anybody who can endanger themselves or others, right then and there, the breach of privacy and confidentiality is completely broken. here we're gonna look into a court case that involves the confidentiality with minors. We have a situation here where a 15-year-old girl and was got pregnant, and her boyfriend went to the school counselor. Her name is Demetria McKay, and they explained the situation to her. Her counselor tells her that she should really tell her mother about what is happening. So the girl tells the counselor that she is not going to do that. She does not want to tell her mother about what is happening. So the counselor decides that she's going to look into all the options that are there and under the state law. So counselor finds out that there is a law to get a judicial bypass of the notification requirement. So McKay decides to meet with the principal. The principal is not named in this situation. The principal wanted McKay to inform the girl's mother of the pregnancy. McKay disagreed, to letting her know that the student has the right to keep the pregnancy confidential. Again, privacy, confidentiality, not broken by the school counselor. The student eventually actually goes to court, obtains the temporary restraining order barring the principal from informing her parents of the pregnancy. The principal had to abide by the rules of the court, which is something that it seems pretty normal to me. Like you have to abide by these rules, no matter what your own personal agenda may or may not be. The law is the law. So the principal had to abide by these rules. To continue with the case in New Hampshire with the 15-year-old student, things get interesting 4 months after the fact, because then Miss McKay, the counselor, received a notice of non-renewal from the superintendent of her district. And she also received a list of reasons. Some of them are insubordination, breach of confidentiality, and neglect of duties. The charge of confidentiality came to the fact that McKay had provided the ACLU lawyer with some information about the student, including initials, age, and grade, as well as the fact that she was pregnant. Interesting enough, in a 4-1 decision on April 7th in appeal of Farmington School District, the New Hampshire Supreme Court ordered McKay reinstated to her job. The state high court agreed with the state board that the counselor was not insubordinate on the basis of failing to go up the chain of command before aiding the student on her options for judicial bypass. The court said that Farmington School Board policy supported the state's board conclusion that to avoid insubordination, McKay was required only to discuss her disagreement with the principal, which she did. The court also agreed with the state board that McKay did not breach student confidentiality by passing along limited information about the student, which Ms. McKay did. Justice Robert L. Lynn wrote a lengthy dissent arguing that the local school board's decision against renewing McKay was correct. So this counselor just abided by her Confidentiality Act, which she explained to the student, and because confidentiality and privacy are backed by law, by state law, this actually helped her to get her job back. Here we have another court case, but this court case is actually one of those that I like to think of like when confidentiality and privacy kind of go wrong. This case involves a 13-year-old girl who became interested in Satanism. This caused the student to have an obsession with death. The student told several of her friends that she was going to commit suicide. Several of the student's friends reported the suicide threat to the school counselor, which is, I think, is a great thing that they came to the counselor, letting the counselor know that you have one of the students who is thinking about committing suicide. So that already raises one flag. So that right there, the counselor questions the student about this, and the student denied having any suicidal thoughts. So you go into the set, you speak to the child, after the child has been telling everybody this is what she's going to do, and they deny it. So what do you do as a counselor? This is one of those things where you got to use your judgment. So it was probably a judgment call, and it was not the accurate call to make at that particular time. The school counselor did not notify the student's parents what he heard regarding her plans to commit suicide. This is a very tough. It is very, very tough because by rule of thumb, like I've been working in the school for a long time. Once you hear a child say, um, well, that he's gonna kill themselves or they're gonna harm somebody, you do that. You go, you question them, but you just don't leave it at, I'm gonna ask you and then you're gonna tell me no, and it's just gonna be over. This is one of those situations where maybe the counselor should have digged a little bit deeper into it. If you have multiple students coming at you, letting you know that this is what this student is planning, this is what this student has been talking about for whatever time they've been talking about it. Um, the counselor's job, I believe, was done because counselor went and spoke to the girl, even though the girl denied it. I think maybe a little more, personally, I think a little more could have been done, could have been spoken to the girl just a little more. The student was later killed as part of a murder-suicide pact with another student. The other student shot the student before killing herself. The student's father sued the county board of education for negligence. Again, it's a judgment call. It's a judgment call. She did her job. I don't think it was probably. I don't think she did enough, but she did just enough to probably justify her job, which is something that as a school counselor is not. I don't think that should be it. Um, she probably should have digged a little deeper into the situations. You have many people coming in and stating what this girl has been planning on doing. Again, judgment call. This right here is the school community on students' confidentiality. This is one of those uh, situations where sometimes the whole community doesn't understand why everything must be kept under wraps in counseling sessions, and maybe parents and teachers and administrators should know right off the bat why everything should be known. Parents and teachers and administrators feel that confidentiality creates an unsafe environment in school. The reason why they can believe that it creates an unsafe environment because a lot of information is being withheld from them. Um, in all reality, the more information that you have, the better off you are. But when it comes to these sessions, there is a reason why everything must be kept confidential. Um, and one of the reasons is to be able to get this information out. In the case that somebody's going to get harmed or harm somebody else, then the counselor comes out and say it. But within those sessions, everything that's being said is stuff that should not be known by everybody within the school community. So I do understand where parents, teachers, and administrators may come from, believing that it's an unsafe environment, but it is only an unsafe environment if the counselor does not come forward with the information that can harm the person or harm somebody else. Also resembles a therapeutic environment. Rather than be a learning environment, a place where you are just learning and communicating with other people and dealing with them on a day-to-day basis, and that becomes therapeutic. But yes, the environment is therapeutic, but only for a selected few people, just for certain people that actually need it, but not for the entire community of the school. So that is an argument that's a little off. It's just for a selected few people, not for everyone. Students will share information that is not appropriate for school. Um, I can see how this is a situation right here because a lot of the stuff that happens in the counseling sessions is not something that's appropriate for school. Now the problem is if these kids cannot let that out within the counseling session, where are they going to let that out at? Where are they going to get the proper help? Where are they going to get the proper guidance? So the proper guidance is gotten either in these counseling sessions or at home if you are comfortable enough to speak to your parents. But in the case that you are not comfortable enough to speak to them, or you're not comfortable enough to speak to anybody else, there is always the counselor. There's always that one person that is willing and able to listen to you, help you, no matter what, and they will not pass judgment. So these three areas of how some school communities feel about confidentiality, they are they are valid, but I think it's more important to have the sessions happen than not have them happen at all. Right now, I'm just going to talk about the actual counselor's role within the school system, which is something that is lost completely when you actually go into the schools. The counselor's role are of leadership, they are of advocacy. They have to try to close the achievement gap, ensure that all students that all students are faced with the same challenges, and to eh, work to try to get system-wide changes to make sure that one section of the students are not taking lesser courses than the other students, that everybody's on the same page working towards one same goal. Um, they assess the needs of the population, they address the needs, they try to remove barriers, and they set high expectations for all students. School councils also collaborate and team up with the rest of the school community, the stakeholders in the community, which are parents, teachers, administrators, uh, just to develop effective working relationship with them in order to create systematic change. They identify the areas of need, and they put system in place that are data driven, so they can then create the change by collecting some of this data, putting everything together, see what works, what doesn't work, to create a better environment. The reason why I stated all the responsibilities that the school counselors have is because a lot of their time is being wrongfully wasted in other responsibilities that just don't belong to them. I've seen it with my very own eyes. Counselors just doing clerical work, scheduling all sorts of things for testing in the schools, doing dean duties in the hallways, security duties in the front doors, lunchroom duties, doing school aid work. And I'm not saying the school aides don't have a good job or anything like that. I'm just saying like the counselor's job is the counselor's time is being wasted in responsibilities that don't belong to them, and this takes away from counseling sessions. This takes away from them having the time to be able to speak to the students about their worries, things that they've been thinking about, perhaps hurting themselves, hurting other people. This is all taken away because of the wrong responsibilities. I just had to bring that up because it all actually goes together. Um, Counselor's role goes together. Confidentiality goes with that session. Students, everything goes into one uh, big bowl that has to be worked properly in order for these students to get the right help that they need on a day-to-day basis by the counselors. In closing, I'd like to say that confidentiality with minors is a very important um, act to have within the school system. Is a very good thing. Uh, Students can have somebody they can go speak to, no judgment, best interest at heart, guide them in the right direction. So this is an amazing thing to have. I personally believe that this is one of the best things that can be had in a school system, or any system. It could be a school system, it could be a boys and girls club, it could be anywhere where you have a lot of teens, a lot of kids. Just to have somebody that they can speak to, somebody that can trust, somebody that has best interest at heart, that can guide them in the right direction. I hope you guys enjoy this. Obviously more than I did, because I have a very difficult time speaking in front, or even in this scenario I made plenty of mistakes, so hopefully this didn't come out too bad. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day.